Welcome into the Cowboys Report. Tom Downey here. We are in a July sub-battle across the NFC East. Now, we have the early lead over the Commanders. They've done a terrible job. The Giants got the lead over them. We are trailing against the Eagles. Now, look, they're kind of in the right size to get that early big-time growth. We can catch them, though, because there's going to be way more than 40 people who watch today's show and yet are not subscribed. So don't be the guy who doesn't sub. Hit that sub button for daily Cowboys videos, normally multiple times per day, right here on the show, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. We begin with the latest final, hopefully, update on the Dak Prescott injury drama. Now, there is some conflicting information that I don't think should be totally just ignored altogether, but it does seem like the Dak injury drama has been resolved. If you weren't paying attention over the 4th of July, this photo surfaced on social media of Dak Prescott pretty clearly in a walking boot in that right foot while he was down in Cabo San Lucas. Then, after reports saying, he's fine, Dak posted this one last night with him clearly not in a walking boot on that right foot. So what exactly happened here, I think, is still up for debate, but Dak also texted Clarence Hill of Fort Worth Star-Telegram saying, "I'm great." Now, Dak's argument was a little bit different than what other people have said. Says, the last time I went deep sea fishing, my ankle swole up. People be reaching. That kind of isn't the same as foot sprain or ankle soreness or whatever. So I think it is actually very clear something happened here. And I think it was a very minor thing, but you don't just wear a walking boot for no reason. Now, you have that ankle was probably worth about $200 million. So I would also be ultra cautious. It might have been one of those things where, your ankle's a little sore. Throw the boot on because you're 3 weeks away from camp. Why risk anything else? Whatever happened is a pretty tight timeline since he wasn't wearing it really at the tight end U event. And then, of course, he was on the golf course, by the way, in Cabo without the boot. So I don't think it was that bad of a thing there. Now, in general, I think it's a bigger deal sometimes of keeping your quarterback healthy, with that being my number one underlying concern, because there have been some injury issues there. So what is your confidence level in Dak's health? Scale this for me from 1 to 10. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. I do want to emphasize this point, too. The Cowboys have lied about injuries in the past. They have not always been truthful when it comes to what's really going on with player injuries. And sometimes it ends up being fine, or they downplay their concerns. Remember the Tyron Smith thing? He's fine. Oh, nope, the hamstring came off the bone. What? How did that even happen? And what I do think is worth mentioning, I'm not trying to sound any alarms here, the story of what happened or what is going on is actually not consistent really at all. Now, Bryan Broaddus has said he was told it was ankle soreness. Todd, Archer, Calvin, Watkins, in report their story, it was a foot sprain. And Dak had said it was normal maintenance because they didn't want to have it swell up when it went deep sea fishing. Okay. I was told it was an inflamed tendon. And maybe all of those things can kind of be combined together in terms of, it's kind of that tendon that connects the foot and the ankle, and that was sore and it was inflamed, and they're just calling it a super, super mild foot sprain. Maybe all those things are true. The one constant across all the different reporting that's happened, whether internally, externally, Cowboys-related, player-related, agent-related, whatever, it's not a concern. It's not a big deal. He's fine. He's clearly already out of the boot. And maybe if it hadn't been photographed in Cabo, it never would have been a big deal, right? If he had stayed at home instead of going on the family vacation. I do get any potential doubt concerns here. That's the quarterback. It's that right ankle, the one that's surgically repaired, that has always just looked a little bit puffier since afterwards, which I think actually does make some sense. So if there's doubts, concerns, totally get it. Totally justified, etc. I don't think you have to adopt it's fine, ignore it altogether. I don't think you actually have to take that mindset. I think it's reasonable to have some concerns there. And in the end, we'll know for sure at camp. That's 3 weeks away-ish. You will show up there. If he's fine, okay, nothing to worry about. Got the boot back on? Okay, it's a totally different conversation. I don't think he's going to, but he'll be asked about it as well. We'll spend some time here on Ezekiel Elliott as well in today's show. You can get his new number 15 jersey over at chatsports.com/Zeke15 jersey. It'll take you right to the Fanatics site. Sometimes still pops up that 21. He's wearing the 15 this year. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/Zeke15 jersey. Inside the Star, one of their really good pieces, arguing, hey, maybe Ezekiel Elliott could actually be on the roster bubble this year for the Cowboys. Now, I'll preface this by saying most of the article was actually pro Elliott, and I think the argument was more, no, he's not going to be on the roster bubble. But here was the main argument, hey, maybe he is not fully locked in. Quote, as much as we'd love to see Elliott back in the Cowboys uniform, Mario wrote, we must prepare for the chance that he is not on the roster for the Week 1 matchup in Cleveland. Elliott hasn't lost all of his burst, but poor run blocking won't do him any favors. He's not as shifty as he used to be, so run scheme will be important to his success. I've got thoughts on this. Do you think Ezekiel Elliott makes the Cowboys roster this season? Why for yes and for no, sound off for me in the comments of today's show. I think this is a resounding yes. I don't really see a scenario for what Zeke is that he's not on this roster. That was part of the reason why I'm like, people are like, make him earn his roster spot. They were never going to. It's Zeke and the Cowboys. There's too much behind the scenes impact, not football related stuff that just makes it, I think, impossible that they choose to cut him. Even if he's not as good as they think he is, or even if he's lost another half step, whatever, I don't think they're going to cut him because it's Zeke and the Cowboys. There's more that goes on there, right? Now, the contract, technically speaking, is cuttable. But they don't really save anything if they do that. It's 1 year, $2 million, $1.63 million of that is guaranteed. They'd save less than $400,000 if they cut him. There's no savings. Now, you save the incentives, but that's not likely to be earned anyway. There's no savings by cutting Ezekiel Elliott. This is not some, he's got to prove his roster spot contract. That's you'll be on the team. You're cheap, but you're going to be on the team. Remember, he is the highest paid back on this Cowboys roster. And in general, following the money is often a good way to identify who's going to be on the team, who's going to play a noteworthy role. His incentives are fringe starter, it's not outright starter incentives, right? $250K if he gets to 1,110 yards from scrimmage. 10 touchdowns gets him another $250K. If he plays half the snaps, $500,000. Now, the Cowboys have to make the playoffs for all of those incentives to hit each individual one, but you're not giving incentives to a guy like, 50% of the snaps. He's not in the starter conversation, right? So over or under that touchdown figure here for Ezekiel Elliott. 9.5, so there's no ties there. Over, he gets the 10. Under, he does not. O or U in the comments section. It is the proper over-under number, by the way, because half of Elliott's season, he's gotten to double-digit touchdowns. If there is concern over Elliott not being the same guy he was at his prime, look, you're right. He's not. He hasn't been that guy for several years. And the regression, frankly, has been there for a while. Great next-gen stat metric is rush yards over expected, which factors in down and distance, the blocking that's going on, what should be gotten by the average running back. When you're a plus 0.45, shoot, man, you're one of the best backs in football. You're averaging almost an extra half yard per touch. That's incredible. But the numbers have dropped from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. The numbers even got worse this past year in New England. And yeah, the Patriots' offense was a dumpster fire. It really wasn't the run blocking's fault. The run blocking was actually kind of decent. It did its job. They just paid Ramondre Stevenson big money because they liked what they saw out of him, right? It's that the passing game was a disaster class, but it's just not the same explosiveness. The big plays aren't there. I would not be surprised if it ends up being the lead back for the Cowboys because they don't seem to love Royce Freeman. We'll see what he ends up showcasing. Rico Dowdle has had injury problems. I think Dowdle's better right now. My issue with that is not with Zeke being on the roster. That race has already been run too, by the way. It's if you want to make him your lead back, in 2024, I don't think that's going to work. I've seen arguments not from the comments, but from other social media, like, oh, just give him 200 carries. He'll get you, 4 yards a carry. That's not good, though. I need explosive plays. I need more efficiency. You want to make Zeke a short yardage back, goal line stuff, short yardage, pass protection? Awesome. Trying to make him the 50% back? I don't think that's a good idea for the Cowboys. But he'll be on the team. Of that, I have no doubts.